All right, so this ought to be interesting. I'm going to try and do a first-person view of doing some fusing of quad-core staggereds. All right, so I've already got my material prepped. This is a 2738 quad core stag. It's going to be made into a super single that'll be going in a 35 V3. So what I do for these is I do 31-inch shot, and then I cut the 31 down into 7-inch sections with a little bit of overlap, just to make sure I have enough. Got my fancy schmancy little ruler made out of painter's tape. It works. Cut our 4 shots, 1, 2, 3, 4. You never want your middle shot to be, or your terminating shot, you never want it to be on the outside. I always put it in the middle. Always put it in the middle. Let's see, what else, right? Where'd you get that cool little vise, right? This guy. Right here. That I got off from, I believe it was Amazon, for really, really cheap. And all I do, or all I had to do, was the handle that was in it was really long. It was oblong. It was not centered. I removed it, and then I took a bolt, quarter 20 thread, I believe, and milled it down to a 1/4 inch diameter so it fits in my chuck. Granted, not everyone might have the tooling available to do that. I understand, but that's what I did with mine. So we've got our 4 cores secured in our vise. We've got it terminated. We've got a little tension here on our swivel with a crock ball bearing in the middle. This here is a straw. These are what I use to hold my cores. I use a straw because I can cut it down the center, and then I can remove it off the end. Just like that. So I'm going to put it back on here. Alright, so for fuse gauge, I really enjoy this 38 gauge N80 from Coil Clout. It's all from Coil Society. It is excellent, excellent stuff. Super, super, super clean. I like the way this 38 gauge feels. It's got a little bit more, it's a little stiffer than, say, Kidney Puncher 38. And when I'm doing multi-core stags, I like that. I don't want it to be too pliable. I also use this for my micro aliens for billet stuff. Again, because it has that kind of firmness to it. But if your spacing is spot on, this will go so smooth. But you have to be very good at your spacing. If you have occasional hiccups every once in a great while with dual core stags, there's a strong chance that you have the skill set and ability to advance to a 3 or a 4 core. Like I said, the most important thing is just making sure your spacing is consistent. When fusing, I'm staying right at a 90. Not a whole lot of tension on the spool, but a little bit. Just because I really like to make sure my spacing is super duper tight so it just looks silly clean. One thing I did not mention, which was when I first started getting into multi-core staggered builds, is I would run into, every once in a while, just having a straight up shot that would not fuse, and I'm like, oh, it must be my spacing. But it wasn't. It was the fact that I wasn't paying attention when stacking up my pieces that I cut off, and every once in a while, if one fell on the floor, I couldn't tell which way to orient it. That makes a major difference when trying to fuse multiple cores. So, food for thought. If you're trying this out on 3 or 4 or more cores, make sure that all of your snips, all of your cuts of your material are running in the same direction. You'll notice too, I mainly stick to doing shots that are all off the same piece of material. Reason for that is it's just super consistent. I can do a 3-foot shot of multi-core staggered, but at nowhere near the success rate that I have just doing a 40-inch run that I cut down into 12-inch sections. Like, to the point where I can do 3 12-inch sections in less time than it takes me to fight through a 3-foot section, because you have to use 3 different shots of wire. Some people say, well, you could save a lot of time. Well, you could, or it could cost you astronomical amounts of time going through all the prep work, all the setup, just to get through, say, a 10-inch run, and then run into some type of issue that you simply can't get out. Then you have scrap. Scrap leads to cost. Scrap leads to waste. You know, it just doesn't work out. When fusing these, I do about 1/4 of an inch or so. Do a little pinch with nylons, then you're at the end. Again, this is only a 7-inch shot, but you got twist, right? All I do for the twist is I start at the chuck, roll it out, roll it out, roll it out. That's all. Next step from this point is I actually have 2. So I've got 2 pieces over here. A lot of people would go out and insert a random piece here to roll their stuff flat on. I myself had my wife pick me up a tile from Lowe's. This is, I believe, a granite tile. It was $5. It's 12 inches square, and it is virtually indestructible for what I'm doing with it. Then I got the stainless steel roller from eBay, I think for like $12. It is detrimental to my staggered building, because I used to do this with, you know, any random piece of super hard surface with my coil jig, and it would absolutely annihilate my hands doing, you know, 10 to 15 sets of these a day. So doesn't have to be expensive, doesn't have to have a name on it, it just has to function. Okay, so go to Lowe's, piece of granite tile and a roller, stainless steel roller. That's all you need. You roll your stuff flat and then it's flawless. Now, the difficult part here, wrapping ginormous coils, right? These are going to be 8mm. Okay, one more. A little billet. What I do for an 8mm coil is I actually use the Watofu profile mesh tool for wrapping your mesh on. With these, I start from the end that was in the chuck, mainly because if I start from the other end, you see all those little frays? Frays hurt, okay? They stab. So I go from the opposite end because I know it's wound up nice and tight, and I cut off my tag end from my wire, and I'll preform the first wrap as best I can so that it's all wrapped like so. And I'm going to use that as much as possible to keep alternating between my thumb and my index finger. The main thing when wrapping giant coils is that tension. You need to maintain that tension throughout the entire wrap. Otherwise, you'll end up with gaps, spaces, and it looks wonky. We don't like wonky. So, there we go. No wonky. We're gonna grab our giant mandrel, which is a 5/16, which is like 7.9999, yada yada. And it's snug. Tight, tight, tight. Take our snips. Snip that off. Then with this, I don't try and pull it. I just unroll it or uncoil it slightly. Snip our end. I also bend the leg about halfway up on the coil. It makes installing for the user much easier, because you have to really lower this coil in the build deck so it doesn't foul. So if I'm pre-bending them so that when they're installed they sit ideally as low as they can, you're good to go. So it looks like a little weeble wobble. Set that one there, then repeat one more time. You want to make sure to, when you relax the coil, you do it nice and slow. Nice and slow. On our mandrel, snip our end, flip around, snip our other end. I like it. Still trying to figure out wearing a camera on my head here, but there we go. Two monster 8mm coils. A little fusing action, a little talk discussion. I know there's a lot of people that build and are always curious, and I'll always share. So, may not be of super value to a lot of people, but maybe super valuable to others. So, thanks for tuning in. Peace.